Okay, welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2020 show. We are presented by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, SVRA, and McGilvery's. And I want to mention the McGilvery's is remodeling. When you see the place, you won't believe it. They will be opening for carryouts again here shortly, I'm told. So when they do, I'll let you know. But it's going to be spectacular. You're going to walk in and think you're in the wrong place, but I'll let you know when things are going on. Founded in 1993 to spearhead Honda's entry into IndyCar racing, Honda Performance Development has overseen successful racing efforts at all levels of the sport, from karting and quarter midgets to IndyCar and prototype sports cars. HPD offers race engines and competition parts for professional, amateur, and entry-level racers. For more information about HPD and the company's racing product lines, please visit hpd.honda.com. Everybody's favorite doctor's appointment, of course, is a dentist. Well, I've got the solution for you. The Indy Dental Group. Indy veteran Dr. Jack Miller and his wife, Dr. Liz Lewis, have phenomenal practice, and you will love it. I guarantee you, they're super. Make an appointment. Just call 317-846-6125. And we do have a new computer guy, A-plus affordable computer doctor. I call him Dr. Steve Freeze. One thing about him being a doctor, he makes house calls. So if you've got a problem, call him, talk to him about it. If need be, he'll come by your house, pick it up, or fix it while he's there. Number is 317-328-0766. Have you often wondered what it's like to take a ride in a two-seat in an Indy car? You can take the two-seater at the Indy Racing Experience. Just go to indyracingexperience.com, find a date that'll work for you when they get back to run. And in the promo box, put DK1 and you get a 50% discount. Or you can call Shonda at their office at 317-243-7171. Again, just mention DK1, you get a 50% discount. Is it time for insurance on your home, your car, or your commercial property? Do what I and a lot of people have done. They call VP Insurance and talk to Mike Pardee. He will help you. He'll give you better coverage for less money. And when you got a problem, he's right there. Give him a call. Number is 317-248-0070. For those of you into vintage racing, and behind me, you can't see very well, but it's the car, the Olsenite Eagle. It was driven by Bobby Unser. It's here, it's for sale. But if you are looking for a car that you want to have your own vintage car, you have one, you need it restored, the Grand King shops will be more than happy to help you. They can rebuild engines, they can rebuild the cars. Give them a call. The number is 317-820-3595. And if you are a vintage fan, you need to get Speed Tour magazine. Just go to svra.com and subscribe. It's a great magazine, first class, done great stories, done very, very well. And some of the cars that you know as a kid and some of the drivers are both on the track these days. So check it out. And I have to thank Bill and Stephanie Throckmorton for allowing us here in the Grand King shops again. We will be here until we can go elsewhere, as far as I know. So stick with us. My guest today is the president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I met him back in, I'm not sure, 94, 95, when I started Autosport. And I was talking to some guy down at 16th Street Speedway. And I said, I want to get a hold of, he said, who are you looking for guests? I said, I'd like to get hold of the mayor. How do I do that? And the guy said, funny you should ask. See that guy over there? He's the mayor's communications director. His name is Doug Boles. Go talk to him. I did. Doug shudders when he thinks about it, but within 2 weeks, I had the mayor on the program, Steve Goldsmith. And from there, he is an attorney, but he was a team owner of Panther Racing. He's been involved in the sport pretty much all of his life, and is now the president of Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Please welcome Mr. Doug Boles. How you doing?
Hey, Don. I'm good. How are you? I wish I was at 16th in Georgetown, but instead I'm in my basement.
In your basement? And what's that in the background in your basement? What's that in the background in your basement?
This is sort of our makeshift Doug Boles on Zoom studio with my "Is it August yet?" T-shirt right over here, and my my safety patrol yellow shirt hat, and
there you go.
So I'm just kind of hanging out down here in the basement. I've been working down here. I get in the office about 3 days a week just to check in and make sure everything's going okay. John Lewis is in there pretty much every day on behalf of all of us at the Speedway, but it's a little strange for sure. It's almost like more meetings now than when we're in the office, just as much as we're trying to communicate with each other, either through Zoom or through Skype or just regular phone calls.
Yeah, I had Mark on a few weeks ago, and he said, I used to travel a lot. Now I sit and talk on the internet a lot. So
It's
everybody's
been
in the same boat. How much has,
it's been fun.
go ahead.
I was going to say it's been fun with Mark just because technology, getting him up to speed on all the kind of different technologies. And today actually was the first day that we got him completely set up on the video communication, which it's been a lot of fun. But it's been amazing how in touch you can stay with folks and how many people can gather on the same call and you can see them and talk to them. So we're definitely staying in contact with each other.
Now, since the stewardship switch and Penske Entertainment came on board, how has that affected you and what you do, if at all?
I think in a lot of ways it's a lot busier than it was, just because, Roger obviously is so passionate about the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and about IndyCar racing, but in particular the Speedway and the Indy 500. And he's just really engaged in sort of every facet of the business. So having Roger on board just means there's an awful lot more questions that you get because he's interested. It's not just questions, but thoughts and ideas that he wants to run through. So it used to be I was just sort of juggling Mark, and now you got to juggle Mark and Roger at the same time, and it's so it's a little bit busier in that sense. One of the great things that Roger did when he came on board, actually we started talking about it last fall, but hiring John Lewis, who used to be on the IndyCar side
Right.
before he went to IU and did some other things before coming back. And John is really helping us, especially with all the investment that Roger's making in the facility, really helping us manage through all of those projects and the contractors. And it's stuff that really fits well in John's wheelhouse. And John knows our sport, knows our facility. So it wasn't like bringing a facility guy in and having to explain to him what the Speedway was about or what our sport's about. So getting an awful lot of time to work alongside John has been great as well, and tons and tons of progress going on at the Speedway. But I'd say we're a bit busier since Roger's been around.
If I'm not mistaken, one of the first things that happened after he officially signed on the dotted line, I believe, was they put a flagpole out in front of the admin building. I think that's about the first thing that happened.
It was one of the very first things that happened. I mean, he started touring the facility really beginning November 4th or 5th and was coming in a couple days a week. And then as it got closer to closing time, he said, okay, here's some of the things I want to do. We just little things, right, that you might not notice. All the stop signs inside the property have been swapped out for brand new stop signs. He wanted a flagpole on the front of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway because we're an American company in the heart of America, but because everybody drives by there, and he was awful proud to be an American. And so we got that flag up and got it lit. He started saying things like, okay, let's get the admin building painted. Let's trim the trees up. Let's figure out how to light gate 1. Let's figure out how to light gate 2. Just little things that aren't necessarily new investments that generate revenue for him or for the Speedway, but things that just make you feel like you're at someplace special when you see those things.
I was told, I had SJ on the other day, and she said there's a lot of meetings, and she said inevitably when I sit down at the table at a meeting, he sits right across from me. And the odd thing is, we'll be talking about something that is not in my department, but he'll ask my opinion. She said he asks a lot of people's opinion and wants to know what everybody thinks, which I think is phenomenal.
Well, it's one of the things I learned really early on, and even as we were introducing more of our team to Roger on these facility walks, for lack of a better word, is we could be out walking the facility, and you could be the ticketing person walking with us, and the question could be about media center and how do we manage media, and Roger makes sure that everybody's engaged. So you have to always be on your toes, even when it's not in your even if it's not in your world, right? And it's pretty amazing. He remembers people's names, he calls them by name, and he makes you feel and expects you to be engaged in the conversation, whether the conversation is about your world or Don Kay's world or Jay Fry's world or whoever's world it is. He wants your opinion and he wants to make sure you're staying engaged. So SJ is absolutely right. You find out pretty quickly that you might think he's talking to somebody else. And I think it's weird. I do think he realizes when you're looking at your phone or not paying attention, because it's at that moment that your name comes up. So you learn pretty quickly to stay engaged in the conversation.
And speaking of taking tours, one of the first things I remember reading about after Roger, in fact, I think you were with him on a tour when the sale closed, and he just mentioned, he got a call and he mentioned to you, it's done, and off you went. that you had never realized how many bathrooms there are on the property until you and Roger walked every single one.
Well, I clearly knew how many there were, but I hadn't been through all of them. And Mark will tell you the same thing. I mean, between Mark and John Lewis and I, we've probably been in all of the restrooms, a dozen times each. And every time Roger comes in, we walk. And if you're going by a restroom, you can count on the fact you're going to go in it. He wants to see the progress, wants to know what it looks like, and he's always got some new idea on how to make that part of the customer's experience better. And again, I think the thing we've all learned pretty quickly that there's two things about Roger Penske. There's a lot of things about him, but there are two things that stick out about why he's so successful. He is so focused on details. It is really, really in his DNA to focus on details, and I mean down to the smallest detail. And then he outworks everybody. The guy works his tail off, and it's a pretty neat opportunity to get a little peek inside Roger Penske's world and why he's been so successful. I think over time you're going to see that transfer to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and the experience of the folks have at the Speedway is going to be because of his complete commitment to that detail.
I talked to a friend of mine the other day, and he said, at the main entrance, gate 1, there's a sign that says Indianapolis Motor Speedway. All of a sudden it disappeared. I said, really? And it was back up the next day or 2 days or something. And I said, if I'm not mistaken, they've lit the place, but I bet they changed it and made it brighter. I don't know that because I haven't been by there, because the sun is up a lot later a lot longer it used to be. But didn't they put the signs up and they're lit now so you can see them as you drive by? You know what it is?
So that was one of the first things Roger said, is that we need to light gate 1, and gate 1 has not been lit since we redid it for Project 100. Underneath the gate's been lit so we can make it feel light under the gate, but we never really illuminated the Indianapolis Motor Speedway letters. So it's one of the things he wanted to do, and he actually wanted us, he said, I want them to be black during the day so they're easy to see during the day, but then they have to light up white at night. So we went on a wild goose chase to find a technology that really allowed us to do that, and Roger was certain there was such a thing, and he was absolutely right. And what we ended up doing was taking the old letters down, putting up new letters that are letters that during the day they're black, so they're easier to see, and at night they reverse out, and it is lit from the inside, not from the outside. So those lights light up from the inside. And I just saw a photo today that we've got the letters up over gate 2 now, which is the tunnel going under the speedway, and those will do the same thing. So it won't just be gate 1 that's lit up. It's going to be the tunnel of gate 2. So when you drive by the speedway at night, it will be lit up, and it's clear that you're at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
One of the things in the press conference they had prior to the 100th day party, it was a few days before or so, and it was mentioned and discussed at length that underneath the paddock penthouse, the people that sit on the main levels, they're up high. They can't see much more than the pit area. So they have no clue what's going on with the race. They can't see the scoring board. And they're putting up, 27 or 32 scoring boards so that people that sit up that high can see what's going on.
Yeah, so I think we settled on 27 video boards in that area. Really, all those folks have had, if you sat about halfway up in the paddock, up to the top of the paddock, which sits, as you said, right underneath the paddock penthouse, you really haven't seen a video board in your time at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway unless you were right across from the Gas Alley video board as the cars go in and out of Gas Alley. So you haven't seen replays, you haven't seen starts, you haven't seen pre-race on video. And so Roger really saw that as an issue, and it's one of the things in our post-event customer surveys that we hear. And Roger, by the way, read through all those, not just the survey results, but the comments that the customers have made, and helped along with us outline some of the bigger issues. And so when folks come back to the Speedway and sit in those seats now, you'll actually get to see replays. You'll get to see the content. It's actually going to be great for practice days and qualifying days for the folks that sit across there for those days too, just to have that video connection to the event there. So pretty excited about it. And I think our fans are going to find it transformational in the way that they interact with the races at the Speedway.
I have several friends that sit in that area, and they said, we've complained about that for years because we can't really see what's going on. Of course, my first thing is wanting to change your seats. It's not that easy to do.
No, that's especially for the 500 where most of the seats are sold out, right?
Right. And I told him what was going on. He said, oh, really? Yeah, you'll be able to find out everything that's going on. You won't be in the dark anymore. And he said, wait until I tell there's 8 or 10 of them that sit up in there as a group. Wait until I tell everybody. Good. That's the way to get the word out.
Yep.
You started out as a fan and your dad's been involved. Judge Boles has been involved out here for many years. How, and if I'm not mistaken, he wouldn't let you come out here until a certain time. You didn't come out here at 3 or 4 years old.
No, I came out on practice days and qualifying days as a youngster, but the deal in our house was you had to be 10 to go to the Indianapolis 500. And so my first 500 was in 1977. I argued a little bit for the 1976 race because I was actually closer to 10 in 76. I turned 10 3 months after the 76 race. So I felt like that should have counted, and I shouldn't have to wait till I was 10 years and 9 months to go to the race. But I lost that battle, the good lawyer that he is, and the argument I lost, and ended up going in 1977. And looking back at it, you know, it couldn't have been any better for me. Growing up, being a huge AJ Foyt fan, sort of my athletic hero as a kid growing up, to go to the fourth win of AJ Foyt's career at the Speedway as my first Indianapolis 500 still remains one of the more special moments in my lifetime. And I still remember the feeling walking through the gates with my dad, just the excitement of sitting in our seats. We went with a friend of his named Ken Keltner, who was a huge race fan as well. And it was just really a special moment. And the further away from it I get, the more I'm glad that I didn't get to go until that race.
What got your dad excited about racing of the Indianapolis 500? He's a lawyer, he's a judge, been a judge for many years, 30 some years he's been a judge. What turned him on to racing?
So, well, my dad grew up in Indy. He could hear the race cars as he grew up, just was a race fan his entire life. And for him, that, you know, just being in and around the sport was what he's always wanted to do. And he actually worked in the sport. He was the United States Auto Club yearbook editor in the early 60s. Actually, Donald Davidson came in and sort of took the job that my dad had when my dad went off to law school. And so I just grew up around it, and so did he. And, you know, I don't know how much of this he would say, but he chose his first school before he went to Butler at Stetson in Florida, because it was close to the Daytona International Speedway, and he wanted to be around a racetrack 365 days a year, and he knew that school would be out so he could get home in time for May at the Speedway. So he's made a lot of his decisions in his life based on racetracks. In fact, I think Mom and Dad celebrated their honeymoon at Trenton when they were racing an IndyCar race at Trenton. So a lot of his focus and life events have been around racing as well.
Well, you took it a step further. How did you get into politics? How did you become a communications director for Mayor Goldsmith?
Well, I guess my other love besides motorsports was politics. My dad being a circuit court judge, it was an elected office in Hendricks County, and I just remember, when he first ran for office in 1978, being turned loose in a neighborhood as a 12-year-old kid with a bunch of flyers and knocking on doors and saying, "Hi, my name's Doug Boles. My dad's running for circuit court judge. His name's Jeff. Would you vote for him?" And just from that point on, just sort of loving the political process, got involved in that. And my first job out of school, I was a journalism major in school because I wanted to write about racing, figured I was never going to get to actually race. And my first job out of school was at the State House, and just have been around politics, obviously working for Mayor Goldsmith. And then Mayor Goldsmith really is the one that said, man, and Mayor Goldsmith is an awful lot like Roger Penske. 24 hours a day he's working, and he wants you to be working too. And it drove him crazy that I'd sneak off on weekends and go to races or do things like that. He said, "I'm going to take advantage of your passion. Let's figure out a way to take motorsport and use it for the city of Indianapolis." And that's how we started the Mayor's Economic Development Commission, to attract racing businesses to Indianapolis. And from there, I just started getting an opportunity to work in the sport, and then ended up with Terry Lingner doing a lot of stuff on ESPN programs for him. And then at Panther Racing, Panther Racing was when I finally exited the mayor's office, and I've been in professional motorsport ever since.
I was surprised. I didn't realize, I should have, I suppose, when I found when you left Panther, I didn't realize you were an attorney. It never crossed my mind. I don't know why I wouldn't. I mean, it seems logical, but I wasn't aware of that. And for a bit, you started your law firm doing motorsports representation.
Yeah, I did that for a while, working for brands and drivers and others. The most fun I had doing that was working alongside Thomas Schechter. He's an unbelievably colorful character, and certainly somebody that could drive pretty quickly. So I had a lot of fun working with him at probably the most fun I had in terms of the motorsport legal side of things after I left Panther. really working with Thomas and working with other brands that were in the sport. And then I got a chance to go back to and work for the Speedway thanks to Mark Dill and Jeff Belskis, who hired me to come on as a communications person. And I haven't looked back since. And I hope I don't ever have to practice law again.
You know, it's got to be exciting to every day wake up. You probably never crossed your mind you could end up being president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but here you are. And I got to think, when you wake up every day, you say, good grief, is this real?
Yeah, it's there's not been a day yet that I haven't been super thankful for the job and the job that I have. And I tell people, whatever my next gig is, and whenever my next gig happens, it will not be as good as this one. This is a dream job that you couldn't have dreamed about. And it's for a brand and a facility and a place that, that I love more than just about anything. And it's really amazing to be able to get up every day and worry about how do you make the Indianapolis Motor Speedway a better experience for all the customers that come through. And that's really the focus that we have at the Speedway.
Well, it seems to me from what I've read about some of the things going on that's something very high on Roger's list, is he wants this to be the place that people can't wait to get back to. And of course, they've been doing it in crowds of 350,000 people. But I think some of the things he's doing, taking dead trees out, replacing them, cleaning up things that in a year or two, by next year, the year before, year after, fans are going to say, you got to come and see this. This is a great time to go to Indianapolis.
I think that's right. And I'm pretty impressed with, his initial focus wasn't on how can we generate more money at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, or how can we cut expenses to generate more profit at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. His focus has been, how do we make the customer experience better? Because he knows that if the customer experience is better and the customer experience is super at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, those other things will come. So his investments right now are not about immediate ROI for him. It's really all about, I want to make sure that the customers enjoy the experience here. And I think he wanted to set a statement or make a statement that said, fans, you 300,000 plus that come every year to the Indianapolis 500, you're the most important thing we have. And we're going to invest in that experience for you. And it's not just going to be this year. I think you'll see that year over year as Roger invests in it. The other thing that's really encouraging about that is this isn't just Roger Penske. This is the Penske family. So the decision to buy the Indianapolis Motor Speedway was driven by Roger, but it was approved of by the whole Penske family. And I think Roger views this, and I know Greg and the rest of the Penske family view this as an asset that the Penske family wants to be caretakers of going forward. And when you hear Roger say things like, I hope 75 years from now, people look back at the Penske family's ownership of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway with the fondness and the appreciation that folks have for the Holman George's family's ownership time period. So it's exciting to know that it's not just Roger, but it's an entire family that wants to make this experience better for our fans.
I read or heard somewhere that Roger has 60,000 people, give or take, that work for him and the Penske Corporation. I understood that he sent a letter to every one of them offering them 6 free tickets to come to the Brickyard. Now, if that happens and they get 10,000 people to come and use 6 tickets, holy Toledo.
Roger did send out invitations to employees. He didn't, I think he'd take anybody that wants to come. It was focused an awful lot on the folks in the Midwest where it would be easy to drive, but everybody, if you work for Roger Penske, you have an opportunity to come to that Brickyard weekend. And hopefully we'll get quite a few of those folks that will take advantage of that. It just, again, goes to show how much this is about making it a great customer experience. And Roger is so proud of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and what it really means. And he can't wait to share that with his 60,000 plus associates that work throughout the Penske corporations. And so far, we've gotten an awful lot of response back from people who are looking forward to coming. And we just have to get ourselves through this strange period in time with respect to this virus that we're all battling right now, so that we can hopefully have a great race, and a great race with some fans.
Speaking of the virus, what kind of response have you been getting from fans who have tickets for May and may not be able to make it? Have you had any feedback saying, now what? A lot?
So we've had a few people for sure. The great thing about Indianapolis 500 fans is just sort of their resilience and like you, like me, like a lot of us, it's about how many times have you gone to the Indy 500? In particular, what's your streak? How many times in a row? And it's our Christmas day for a lot of us, and that's really the overwhelming message we've gotten is. I think our fans were worried that we were going to cancel the Indy 500 and not have one until 2021. So most people have been saying this is fantastic that we can have the Indianapolis 500 still in 2020. And it's really been encouraging to see the notes, the letters, the phone calls, just the different things you get from those fans who are coming. We've even gotten notes from fans who have said, you know, I can't make it because I'm going to go to X, Y, and Z, or I've got something, but I'm sending my neighbor who's never been before, or my grandson who's always wanted to go is going to sit in my seats next year, but you can be sure that I'll be back next year. I got a note from somebody as well that was worried because they had to go to a wedding on Saturday in Nashville with a whole group of them that always sit together. And what they've done is they've made arrangements to go to the wedding, do the wedding party after the wedding, and then they've rented a van and a driver to drive them from Nashville to Indianapolis so that they're in Indianapolis on Sunday morning to make it to the Indianapolis 500. And that's the beauty of an Indy 500 fan, is just how committed they are to making sure that they don't miss out on that really special day where we don't just watch a race, right? We see folks that we see one time a year where they sit, and we get a chance to celebrate men and women who've served this country, given the ultimate sacrifice for this country. And in this year, we get a chance to celebrate men and women who are out right now helping fight the virus for us. And, you know, in our history at the Speedway, every single Indianapolis 500 has run inside of May. So we get a chance, and out of 104, one of them hasn't. You don't want to miss this one.
You know, one of the most exciting things I ever saw is a few years back, you invited 100, I think there was 105 Medal of Honor winners. Mm-hmm. What a thrill that was. I got to shake hands with every one of them.
It's a humbling moment when you get a chance to meet those real heroes in our world. And that event, that race was an amazing one where Medal of Honor winners recipients have come. You know, Colonel Crandall, Medal of Honor recipient, waved the green flag for the 100th running when we had an opportunity to have the 75th anniversary of Pearl Harbor and have those Pearl Harbor survivors at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. You know that when you get a chance to meet those folks, that you are in the presence of super real heroes, and it's just hard to believe when you get a chance to shake their hands and hear their stories and just what they've meant to our freedom.
One of the things, there's several things that impressed me about your presidency. One is, and I got you involved in, and did it, you will call ticket holders that have been around for many years. And I said to you after you were on the program one day, and when you were leaving, I said, do me a favor. I got a friend that's been coming here since 1954. Would you call him? He said, sure. So one day you did call him, and you got him. He was at Home Depot, and you called and chatted about 15 minutes. He said, when he talks about that today, he gets teary-eyed.
Well, it's for me, it's I started doing that leading up to the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500. We started in 2015 doing these town halls where we went around the state and invited people to come have a cup of coffee, and it was really no more than to say thank you and tell people what's going on at the Speedway. And then we took it one step further, and I just started making these calls on the way home every night as a way to say thank you, because oftentimes, well, all we do is we take your check and we open up the gates and we let you come to the Speedway, but we know that it's more than that, right? It's a sacrifice financially, time commitment, you know, the parking, the things you go through to get to your seat, and to do it year over year. It felt to me like we just needed to thank people and let people know that's not lost on us. So that's how it started out. And I was going to do it leading up to the 100th. And after that, I just felt like I can't stop. We've got, you know, 300,000 plus fans and 40,000 plus customers or account holders that pay for those tickets. You know, it takes you 100 years really to call them all at 10 per night, right? It's a long process, but it has been something for me that even on a tough day, to hear the stories from people, and if I get a chance to talk to them and not just leave a message, I say, how did you fall in love with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway? It's fascinating to hear the stories and to hear what the race means to people. And for me, it keeps me energized. Part of the reason my passion is there is because I know what the passion is from our fan base. And to hear that every night, it just reminds you that, man, you've got the greatest job in the world, and you get a chance to be a voice for the fan in the experience, and you hear it every night when you drive home how much this place means to folks, and it really does, really sort of is the energy that keeps me going.
I've been impressed because I've been to several of your speaking engagements. I just come and stand in the back and just listen to what you have to say and how people react and so forth. And I think that's phenomenal and you do it a lot. You may be president of the Speedway, but that doesn't mean you spend a lot of time in your office. You're on the road making appearances and talking with various groups and so forth. And I got to think that your presence and your commitment to the Speedway has got to have a lot to do with the people's enjoyment and wanting to come here. If there's somebody standing around listening to you talk, you got to think, some of them say, we ought to go. And they do.
Well, I hope they go because they've got a neighbor or a friend or somebody that's a longtime ticket holder who says, hey, come on, you got to experience this with me. Because there's no better way to experience the Indianapolis 500 for the first time than with somebody that you know and you trust. They can kind of walk you through the process and explain to you why it's so important. What I do feel like it's important for me to get out and talk to folks and get a chance for folks to listen to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway because we've never really had somebody out there doing that so people can feel like they can communicate to the Speedway, whether it's a positive thing, they tell their story why they fell in love with it, or the experience that they're struggling with when they're here so we can try and fix it. So for me, it's as much about giving a pair of ears to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for a customer to speak to so that then we can filter through and either solve a problem or say, oh my gosh, that's an unbelievable story. Thanks for telling me. Did you know that you're not unlike a lot of other people who, for the first time, their first experience of the Speedway was in the backyard of Uncle Bill's house, listening to it on the radio and saying, I'm going to go there someday. I mean, they're just it's amazing how we all come together through this common thread of the Speedway. And I think what's really worked for me is it's given fans a place to complain, a place to tell their story, and a place to celebrate the fact that they love the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Well, I personally appreciate seeing you walking through the grandstands. You don't hide somewhere. You don't sneak around. You walk right through the crowd. And I've seen people stop you, shake your hand, and talk to you. And you have no problem with doing that, unless you are heading for one of the new remodeled washrooms. Otherwise, you're more than happy to talk to customers, fans.
Well, I personally, I think it's my job. People often say, hey, from what suite do you watch the 500? I don't. If I see 20 laps of the Indianapolis 500, that would be a good day for me. I really try and spend my time interacting with the fans, listening to our staff, helping solve a problem if our staff has an issue, helping solve an issue for a customer. And then I really try and go out and sit in the grandstands, practice days, qualifying days, even race day. Mostly race day. If I'm watching the race, I'm standing in the plaza watching on the back of the pagoda. With the fans out there to kind of gauge their reaction to the racing and what's going on, which, by the way, is going to be a massive big board for us to watch from for this year's Indianapolis 500. But practice days, qualifying, one of my favorite things now over the last few years in qualifying is I'll get Carter, our youngest, who's now not young anymore, he's 17, and we'll go sit up in E or B penthouse for the Fast 9. And to get in the middle of the crowd for the Fast 9 and feel the excitement and the energy and interact with the fans, but experience it the way the fans experience it is the only way you're going to make the facility better. And I try and do that as much as I can. I watched the end of the Super Crash Fest NASCAR race a couple of years ago from sitting inside turn 4 with the fans, trying to understand, what they were experiencing, how it looked from out there, how we could make that experience better. And if you're not willing to experience the Indy 500 or the Brickyard weekend like a fan, you're not going to be able to solve their problems. So that's why I try and be out there as much as I can.
I have heard a little bit about the possibility. Now, the race obviously won't be in May, but if things lighten up, is there any chance there might be some kind of events that will take place on the grounds at all? I've heard a little talk about maybe, but
on the grounds on the grounds in May.
Yeah. Yes.
At this point in time, we don't really know what we're going to be allowed to do. We don't have anything planned at all for May. I think, I might sneak out race day morning, May 24th race day morning, and sit out in front of gate 1 because I'm sure there's some other fans that'll do it too, because this would have been the 44th year in a row that I would have celebrated my Memorial Day Sunday at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So it's going to be hard not to at least be there for some part of the day. But right now, at this moment, we don't have any plans. We're trying to follow the executive orders of our governor and of our mayor. We're trying to do everything we can to be part of the solution so that we can be on the backside of this sooner rather than later and be able to celebrate people at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway again for our races this summer. I mean, we are focused right now on trying to figure out a way to make sure we have fans for our Big Machine Vodka 400 weekend, as well as for the 104th running of the Indianapolis 500. And the last thing we want to do is put on events at the Speedway that would jeopardize that.
I have found, and I've commented on this a couple of times, how fascinated I have been watching the iRacing. If you're just a casual sports fan, you're looking for something to watch, and you catch this, you'll swear it's a live race. The only thing that gives it away is when the cars sometimes pull in the pit area. If the guy in front of you is in the way, you just go right through him. But otherwise, when they bump, they spin out, they hit the guardrails, whatever. It looks just like a race. They got to stop for fuel. They got to stop to change tires. It's amazing how that is, how realistic it is.
It's pretty amazing how technology is today, and you can look at it and it does feel realistic. We've got iRacing here at the house. I've been on the iRacing platform for a few years now, and when we announced this, and we were talking about having celebrity drivers, I said to SJ over at IndyCar, I said, "Hey, could I maybe qualify to be one of the celebrity drivers one weekend?" And she said, "Sure, just let me know if you're interested, and we'll consider it." And so I thought, leading into the Barber weekend, I was going to spend some time running, and it's a lot harder than it looks. And I ended up getting to the point where I was within 6 or 7 seconds of a competitive time, which would have just put me as a big danger on the racetrack. So I'll leave even that to the professionals. But it has been pretty fun to watch. It's neat to see our drivers get excited about it. It's neat to see our fans interact. It's neat to see our TV partner also adopt it as well as part of the, getting us on NBC and not just streaming it. So we've enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun, but I can't wait to get real cars on real racetracks with real fans.
Yeah, but the neat thing is, according to SJ, that the sponsors are happy because their cars are exactly as you will see them. The sponsorship, you can see it; it's right there. And of course, the broadcast crew doesn't hesitate to mention the sponsor, the number 22 Wix car, or whatever it is, Wix filters. They do mention it, so it's keeping the sponsor's name in the light.
It is absolutely keeping the sponsor's name in the light, and also just keeping the sport relevant, because it's an opportunity to, as you said, people tune into that. They think it looks pretty cool to see. And our sport is uniquely positioned in it, because a little bit of what the drivers do does transfer over to sim racing and vice versa, where if you're the NBA and you're playing one of the NBA Xbox games, it doesn't exactly transfer over, where I could be a great center in an NBA Xbox game, even though I'm only 5'11". So the race car drivers do have an advantage, because a lot of what they do transfers over to the sim, and that's why it's so hard sometimes, really, for us old guys to pick it up really quickly.
Old guys, yeah, right. The other thing that I found interesting is to me it showed talent. Scott Dixon made his first appearance in Barber, and it wasn't really stellar. The second race, he almost won it. In fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he said he thought he was not on, he didn't realize he was on the last lap, or he might have taken a stab at Simon and passed him, but he was right up there and for the lead in only his second event. I thought that was pretty amazing, because he is obviously one of the best drivers ever.
He is obviously, without a doubt, one of the best drivers ever. And still, it's amazing how he continues to be one of the best drivers even today, for as long as his career's been. But that also shows just the focus that a really great race car driver has to have. And I think he spent an awful lot of time that week, from the first race to the second, just honing his craft, like all good race car drivers do. And it's paid off for him. And I think you see that across most of our IndyCar drivers are running and getting better. And maybe at first they thought it was sort of going to be hey, I'll just do this for now. But it's amazing how many of them said, okay, I'm practicing this week. The competitive juices definitely get going.
You have certainly an interesting household. You've got an IndyCar driver who this year is going to be driving a full season, Connor.
Yep.
Your wife is a former world champion in
jet skiing, stand-up jet skis. Yeah. And then her helmet is just up over my right-hand shoulder. You just can't see it. Her world championship helmet.
And Christian won a world championship as well. In ski. I can't think.
Jet skiing. Yeah.
Skis. Yeah. So you live in a household with championship people. So obviously you got to keep your pace up so that you can say, I'm a champion at Speedway. Yeah,
it's definitely a competitive household. And Colin, one of the other boys, played lacrosse all through college and is very competitive. Carter, our youngest, who's just wrapping up his junior year, is is a karter and also a lacrosse player. So sporting events and being the best at sporting events is something that happens in this house. I'm the least talented of the six, and that's why I try and do public speaking is maybe my strong suit.
Well, it certainly is, and I want to take time now to thank you for taking the time to be with us. I know I've been trying to get you in on a Tuesday night, and that isn't as easy as it might sound. However, this worked out, and I appreciate your time and enjoyed the chat. And hopefully we'll get back to being live in front of an audience again. But until then, maybe we're here for a while. I might call on you again.
Well, I'm pretty impressed at your ability to adapt. It's this is like I said before we even started recording here. It's if you would have told me 2 or 3 years ago that Don Kay and Doug Boles will be doing a Zoom interview, I would have laughed because first of all, I wouldn't have known what Zoom was. And if I didn't know, I would be certain to think that you didn't know. And you've done a fantastic job with that. Thanks for continuing to keep us all engaged with our fans and just, really quickly, I'm sure you've talked to your folks about it. We obviously losing Bob Lazier is a big blow. Here in the last week, Buddy's dad, somebody really important to our sport. For a lot of our fans who been around for a long time, know Al Stilley, the reporter on the south side of Indianapolis, who's one of our pit reporters, lost his wife this week. So
of 40 years, his wife
crazy,
of 40
right?
years.
And then Pat Kennedy, who was a big vintage guy and loved the Speedway, like Donald Davidson loved the Speedway. We lost him as well. So the COVID thing is real, and I just caution people just wash your hands, do the things that we're being asked to do, and hopefully that'll just allow us to go racing and get fans back out the Speedway sooner rather than later. It's terrible when those folks that you work alongside or you get a chance to know through the Speedway start losing folks. One of our employees lost his wife, unfortunately, Tony Miles. His wife passed away. It's been a tough few weeks, but I know Hoosiers are resilient, race fans are resilient. We'll get through it, and thank you for continuing to give us something to look forward to every week, Don.
Well, we appreciate your time, and I will let you know. You didn't know maybe what Zoom was 3 years ago. I didn't know what it was a month and a half ago. My IT guy who's sitting over here makes it happen, Ted Hollett. Otherwise, I'd be sitting talking to you on a telephone and trying to figure out how to record that.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time, Doug. I appreciate it very much. Tell Beth hello and those in the house. And Christian, I got to get Christian back one of these days. World champion. You got to talk to him.
He would love it. In fact, I think I noticed earlier today, Beth and Christian were working on Beth's stand-up jet ski in the driveway today. So I know they're anxious to get back in the water.
All right. Thanks for your time, Doug. I appreciate it. Great job that you're doing and keeping fans appraised of what's going on and keeping interest up. I couldn't ask for a better guest, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Don.
My guest has been Doug Boles, the president of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This is it for this time, but we've got some guests lined up upcoming, and we'll have them on. Until the next time, Don Kay saying thanks. See you next time. Bye.